Hello, I'm Adam J. Morgan. Welcome to my podcast on the paranormal. This is the first in a series of paranormal podcasts. I'll be interviewing real people with real stories. My fascination started as a young lad. Me and my friend used to spend hours reading books on the paranormal, normally ghosts or UFOs, even witchcraft. Looking at the pictures were just absolutely fascinating to me. Used to send like a chill up my spine. I don't tend to get that anymore with all these paranormal shows, but I've still followed that fascination. So I wanted to strip it back to its roots and actually start talking to people, normal, down-to-earth people that's had experiences. So I've started reaching out to people on Facebook, social media, and I've had some really good responses. But I'm going to start with my own son, Lucas. He's had some really strange occurrences happen in the house he lives with his mum and stepdad and his brother. I will mention that I've never witnessed this myself. I've never been in the house when this has happened. All this story that you're about to hear is Lucas's experience and his mum's experience. We'll be talking to his mum in a future podcast. Lucas, you didn't really mention it first. I think it was your mum sort of texted me and said, do you still have that EMF meter you use for ghost hunting? Why do you need to borrow it? And she replied and said, I've just seen something really, really strange in the house. Now, how old are the houses, Luke? They're quite new, aren't they?
Yeah, so they were only built maybe 7-8 years ago, and so they're relatively new, so no one's died there.
I'm thinking it was over a year ago this first happened. Do you want to tell me what happened? Was it your mum that first saw something, or was it you? Or was it your mum mentioning it?
It was my mum, because it all started, she would be like doing her hair in the bathroom, and all of a sudden she would hear someone calling her, or she'll hear people chatting from like the living room, which is just down the hall, or the kitchen, and all the windows would be shut, so you couldn't hear anyone from the outside.
How did it make you feel when she said she heard these voices?
It made me a little bit nervous, but I thought maybe she was just, maybe she was just a bit nervous on her own, so I didn't really think much of it.
And then tell me what you've experienced yourself.
Well, it was maybe a month later, maybe 2 months later, and nothing happened until everyone was home, and I just kind of looked out into the hallway, and there was this man stood there. He was quite tall, maybe 6'5" he looked, and no one in my family in the house at the time is that tall, no one. And he was kind of just at the bottom of the stairs staring at us.
Did you see this alone? You're saying us, so I'm instantly thinking there's other people that seen it.
Well, it was me at first, and they didn't believe me because obviously I'm younger, and people tend to make up stuff, but I wasn't making this up. And I saw like he had long black hair, and he was staring, and then a couple days later everyone else started spotting him.
Right, let's go back a little bit. So is it night when you first saw it?
I think it was daytime. I had got back from school, and I think we were watching a show on TV.
So I know your house quite well. So you're in the living room, then you've got a door that opens into the hallway.
Yeah, and directly to the left is the stairs, which if you like, you can't see the living room from the stairs. You'd have to step off the stairs.
Yeah, so it kind of disappears round to the... If I'm sat in the living room looking out towards where the stairs, it goes round to the right and out of sight, doesn't it? A little gap where and then you go up the stairs from there. So you're saying that you saw a tall figure of a man with long hair.
Yeah, long black hair.
Stood. Was he looking up the stairs? Was he looking at you?
He wasn't looking directly at us. He was more looking like in our general direction, but he wasn't staring directly at us.
Could you make out his face?
I think he had pale white skin, because I only saw him for a couple of seconds, and then I turned to say to everyone else, but he had like kind of pale skin, I would say, and he had a blank expression on his face.
did he say he didn't make any sound? There's no noise.
No, nothing. He just kind of looked, and I looked away because I was going to tell everyone else, but he was just gone.
So how did that make you feel seeing that? Because when I was your age, I know for a fact if I had seen something like that, I would have screamed the house down. I would have jumped out of my seat, thinking, "What is this? An intruder? Is it? But who are you?" Did that not make you react like that?
Well, as soon as I saw him, I told everyone else in the room that I just saw someone stood at our stairs. And my brother is upstairs at the time, but he's sleeping. He works nights, and it didn't look anything like how he looked. So my stepdad went and checked, but there was no one in the house.
And what did they say to you? Did they laugh, or like you're imagining it?
Well, they were telling me to calm down because like there was nothing there at the time. So.
Was it corner of the eye phenomenon, which is, you've probably heard me talking about this before, where you see something fleeting in the corner of your eye, but as you turn your head to get a proper look at what you can see, it's gone?
Well, at first it was kind of like that, but as time went on, maybe you could look for maybe a second or two, and he'd still be there. But then he'll just vanish. He wouldn't turn his head round the corner; he'll just be gone. You could only see his head.
So you're saying that that's not the first time you've seen something?
No, he kept appearing for maybe a couple more months. Just it wouldn't be every day. It'd be maybe once a week, once every 2 weeks, something like that. But he wouldn't be there that often.
So let's go back to your stepdad, John, and your mum. So how did their experience start? So your mum's heard something, did you say, about a month before?
Yeah.
You've now seen the shadowy figure at the bottom of the stairs. Tell me, there's a lot more, wasn't there? 'Cause I don't think your mum messaged until she had seen something herself. She didn't mention the noises at first. I think it was when she saw something and then she started messaging about it. So what else did you guys see?
Well, yeah, so it kind of got worse over time, because at first it was just my mum hearing noises, and then she said to me, like a couple days after her original, like hearing the noise, that when I was at school, she heard like me calling her from the kitchen, like saying, "Mom, Mom, come here," and she went in there, and I wasn't there, and she said it sounded exactly like my voice. The kitchen window was shut, no one else in the house. I was at school.
I don't know if anyone can comment below as we're talking here, and if you've had any experiences like that where you've heard someone that sounds exactly like someone you know, like a family member or a friend, and they're not even in the location, the room with you. I've had that, and I'll be really honest, when I've been falling asleep, I think I last had it when I used to live in the flat. I was falling asleep one day and the house was empty, and I just drifted off and I heard "Adam," and it sounded, I don't know, it sounded like my sounded like my own voice, like calling my, it sounds strange saying it now, but it sounded like my own voice actually calling myself. But it was enough to wake me out of my sleep, and like, whoa, and I'm like, hello, anyone? Like, and I went down and I checked the flat to make, I thought, really odd, and all the windows were shut. Because sometimes you can hear like people going by, even your home, you've got drunks going by, shouting, singing, or people in the street arguing, you will hear that, but there's a massive difference to when you can actually hear a voice right next to your ear, like they're in the room, like a couple of meters away. You know what I mean by that?
Yeah.
Right. So, what about John? What's John seen?
Well, it was maybe...
Just for the listeners, John is Lucas's stepdad. So I think I mentioned that, but I just wanted to make that clear. So, John, your stepdad, what's he seen?
Well, it was maybe a week or two after I had seen like the man at the stairs. And he said, "Oh, I just saw something at the stairs." And I said, "Well, what was it?" And he just said to me, it was just someone stood there looking at me.
And that was it, just a couple of seconds?
Yeah, he only glanced and he just saw it. And he just told us in the room, and he said, I just saw a man stood there.
So your mum heard something, you then saw something, and a while after, John's then seen something. What about your brother?
So my at the time my brother just got his first job, so and he was working nights quite often, so he wouldn't really be in any of these times, and whenever he would be in, he'd just be sleeping.
So he's not witnessed anything to date.
Yeah, he's a strong believer that ghosts aren't real at all, and he hasn't seen anything that I know of. He personally hasn't told me, at least.
And that's where we go to the argument where people say that sometimes you've got an expectation. So you can go to a ghost hunt and you can have people that go because it's a bit of a laugh, we'll have a bit of fun, we'll have a few drinks before we go. And there's people that go there because they want to take the investigation really seriously, and they will sit in an empty room for the whole night waiting to experience something. I've been on ghost hunts where I've had that happen, and people have gone from room to room. Oh, this is boring, nothing's happening. And I'm thinking, well, they're not. It's not a pantomime. They're not here to perform for you. And more often than not, the experiences I've had or heard from people is it will happen when you're not expecting it. But then there is also the argument of the expectancy of seeing something. Could it be, and I might be wrong, I'm hoping I'm wrong, could it be that your mum's seen and suggested something, it's then played on your mind and you've then witnessed something, and of course John being in the same household, it's sort of played on his mind and he's witnessing it, that expectation that there's something there.
Well, I mean, it could be possible, but the circumstance was like, it just didn't feel like it would be like everyone does experience the same thing because one person started it. It was weirder than that, because I tend to see or hear the exact same things the person originally tells me, but I didn't hear any voices. It was just someone stood there.
Have you collectively seen it? Have you all been in the same room and all seen it at the same time?
Well, I think not all of us at the exact same time, but the closest it ever was that it was about, I saw the same figure again, like maybe a couple months after the original sighting, and I saw it, and I didn't say anything because I had gotten like tired of everyone saying there's probably nothing there. I didn't say anything, so no one else knew that I saw it. And then maybe 10 minutes later, my stepdad looked and he said, "I saw that man again."
Is there a way that light from passing cars could, because again I know the house, the road runs along outside, because the car's headlights be bouncing off a mirror, casting a shadow? Could it be anything like that, do you think?
Well, personally, I don't think so, because if you remember, the first sighting was in the day, and
Yeah.
the second sighting was at night, but all our lights were on, and because the stairs around the corner.
Let's go to something else now, because obviously that's something you're visually seeing, but you were telling me yesterday, and I think I remember your mum mentioning it at the time, about drinks glass or something coming flying off the table.
Yeah, it was a while after we only started seeing and hearing things that even stranger things happened, like physically things would move. I've got about 3 or 4 of times that's happened.
Oh, right. I only thought it was just the one incident on the table.
No.
So tell the listeners what happened so again, night or day, who witnessed it, who was there, and what room of the house was it?
So I'll start with the glass. So I had just taken the dogs out for a walk. I'm out on the walk. It was daytime.
Yeah.
And I come back in after walking the last dog, and I take all his gear off, pull it away, and then both my stepdad and my mum tell me that the glass, when I was out, had flown off the glass table and had landed on the carpet.
When they say it's not just falling off, then like sometimes when you put a drink down, you don't put it down correctly, and sometimes, and I've seen it happen quite a lot on paranormal videos, where a pint glass or a glass, you can have like residue, overspill of the drink or condensation. It creates like a little slippy pathway, and the water will run off the table ever so slightly. You won't notice it, and then the glass will start levitating along, and then all of a sudden people notice when it smashes on the floor, tips onto the floor. Was it that kind of fall off the table, or are you saying it flew up and over? Because I remember your mum, I'm sure she said, and again we're going to speak to her on Emma on another podcast, but I'm sure she said it flew up in the air.
Yeah, so again, I'd just like to mention, I wasn't there when it happened, but they told me that it didn't slide off the table, it just flew up and off. So as if you're like lightly chucking a ball to someone else, it just flew.
And what else have you witnessed? You said there was more.
Yeah, so this is when we all experienced it. We were taking the dogs out on a walk for like an hour or two, and before we left, we noted everything, make sure it was all locked, all the windows shut, everything. We had gotten home, we walked in the house, and there were things on the floor that weren't there. Like what my scarf from in my room in my drawer was laid out neatly at the bottom of the stairs. And we saw some dog toys were just scattered in place. We had put them all back in their box, and they were some of them were out about.
I might have missed this, but where were the dogs when you were out? Were they at home?
We had both the dogs with us on the walk.
Oh my God, so that is really... I was just thinking I missed that bit, and my brain was trying to process everything you're saying and trying to catch up in my head, and then you said all the dogs' toys were all over the place scattered, and I thought, well, if you've got dogs, generally they don't really have any etiquette and they will help themselves to their toys. But if you're saying that so when you went out as a family, the dogs' toys were where do you normally keep them?
So we normally keep them in this basket behind the sofa.
Yeah.
So even if they were to spill over, they would only be behind the sofa, but they would be on the other side of the room. But the box, the basket itself, would still be in the exact same place.
There's
neatly.
No possibility that you just all forgot to clear up the toys before you went out. They were definitely in that basket when you went out.
I still have, because it frightened me when we got home, I still have the memory of when we were leaving. It was we had cleaned the house because we had guests coming later.
Right.
And we had gone out on the walk maybe an hour or two, got home, and it was everywhere.
And what was on the bottom of the stairs again?
So I have this scarf I sometimes wear in the winter, and I had it in my drawer. The drawer was shut when I left. We had come home, and it was neatly folded, just on the floor on the walkway, the hallway.
That is crazy. I guess what I want to ask you, and I think I know what the answer is, do you believe in ghosts?
I never used to want to believe in ghosts because I didn't want to, one day just open a door and there'll be like a woman floating or something. But over time, with everything that I've seen and heard, I believe that ghosts can be real, yeah.
So my personal belief is I do believe in ghosts, but I've not actually ever witnessed a apparition. I've had strange things happen, and I'll be discussing that in the future. I've had people whisper the name Irwin into my ear on a ghost hunt. I've been stroked on the face. I've had all sorts of strange things happen, but I've never physically seen an apparition. And all my life, even like when I said about when I used to read these books, I wanted to see a ghost, and I was fascinated by the concept. And I think most people that believe are. I think there's no in between with it. I've found as well. You either, when you ask that question, do you believe, or do you not believe? It's a load of rubbish. Or I remember being in a care home once, talking to like some of the staff because they were witnessing something, and there was a lady in the corner, and she was folding all the ironing, sort of listening in, and she just said, "Oh, what a load of rubbish you lot are talking, rubbish, absolute," and she just sort of stormed out the room like. And I was thinking to myself, is she getting angry because she thinks it's a lot of rubbish, or are we scaring her? Are we making her feel uncomfortable?
Well, I can't decide at the moment because I would like to experience an apparition or a ghost, but at the same time, I feel it would kind of scare me into not liking them anymore.
So what do you think you saw at the bottom of your stairs if it's not an apparition?
If it wasn't a ghost, I'm not entirely sure. It's one of those scenarios where I don't know what it could have been, because it's at the bottom of the stairs. It's round the bend, so it couldn't have been lights. It couldn't have been outside affecting it, and it was round the bend and the lights were on, so you could.
But you've seen something that's given you enough to give me a description to say it was tall, it had a really pale face, it had long hair.
Yeah, I don't know. I can't remember. I'm trying to think what colour eyes it had. It was either green or brown eyes, but I can't remember which.
I find that really fascinating, and I love the fact that you weren't all witnessing it at the same time. And I'm thinking to myself, well, could it just all be in your minds because you're all sort of hyping it up, creating something that's not there? But then all of a sudden, my favourite part is when you say about you went out, the house was nice and tidy because you had guests come in, and then you come back and the dog toys are all over the place. And even more spooky is something that you've kept in the bottom of your drawer. It's folded up and in the doorway as you come in.
Yeah, it was perfectly neatly folded, just sat in the hallway, not quite at the bottom of the stairs where the man was stood, but maybe a bit more forward from where he would be standing normally.
I'm going to ask you to come back for a future podcast, because in the meantime I'm going to interview other people, but in a few episodes time you're coming back because I'm going to set you a little task for me if you're up to it. I know you talk to your neighbours, don't you? You get on with some of your neighbours?
Yes.
Can you do me a favour? Can you ask them, don't tell them about all this and what you've witnessed, can you just spark a conversation and say, have you had anything happening in your house that you can't explain? And don't plant the seed of saying I saw a figure at the bottom of the stairs. Just try and say we've had some strange stuff happen in our house, like quite spooky stuff maybe. Have you witnessed anything? And if they start saying, oh yeah, we've seen a figure with a pale face and long hair, but yeah, just be very careful how you word it to them. But please, can you do that for us?
Yeah, I think I understand. I can do that.
Yeah, that'd be amazing. And we're gonna have a conversation again. But yeah, thank you everyone. Thank you to Lucas for your stories, and we're going to come back to that and interview the rest of your family. But yeah, really enjoyed talking. Anyone listening, if you like this, please share, like, subscribe. I'm really hoping to make more, and I have got so many stories and so many interviews lined up with people. And over each episode you're going to learn a little bit about what I've witnessed over the years, more details, and yeah, well, sleep tight, thank you very much, and look after yourselves.